मोस्टली अगर शादी करने के लिए कोर्ट जाने की ज़रूरत नहीं पड़ती है, तो शादी ख़त्म करने के लिए कोर्ट जाने की ज़रूरत क्यों पड़ती है? Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Aditi, an advocate, and I'm here to simplify complex legal concepts for you. I understand, अगर आप legal field से नहीं हैं, तो law एक बहुत ही daunting और मुश्किल subject लगता है. My goal is to help you navigate this confusing world of law with clear and practical information. Whether you're looking for guidance on legal procedures or just want to understand your rights, you're at the right place. So let's begin. Today, we are going to talk about a very important legal topic, which is mutual consent divorce in India. I belong to this peculiar age group of millennials और 2024 में मोस्टली मिलेनियल्स की शादी हो चुकी है, पर अनफॉर्चुनेटली देयर इज अ स्मॉल परसेंटेज जो शादी करने के बाद आर नॉट हैप्पी and are probably considering divorce as well. Now, for people who are unfortunately not happily married and are probably looking a way out of it, there is a method in law which can help you smoothly get out of an unhappy marriage and move along in your life. And that is divorce by mutual consent. So in this video, I will talk about divorce by mutual consent, the legal definition of it, the procedure of it, and also I will try to educate you in a manner ताकि आप खुद decide कर सकें कि क्या ये तरीका आपके लिए suitable है या नहीं. Also, I'll try to debunk some silly misconception around it, but for that you'll have to watch the video till end. So let's begin. So let's understand what is divorce by mutual consent. जब दो लोगों के बीच में शादी होती है, whether love marriage or arranged, it is by mutual consent. यानी कि both of the parties, the bride and the groom, are interested in each other. They want to get married and spend a life together as husband and wife. But the operative part here is by mutual consent. यानी वो दोनों ही लोग चाहते हैं और अग्री करते हैं कि हाँ शादी की जाए और साथ में रहा जाए और हस्बैंड और वाइफ का टाइटल भी अज्यूम किया जाए. The mutual consent lies here in mutually agreeing to get married to each other. Similarly, after marriage, अगर husband and wife realize करते हैं that they are not compatible enough to lead a happy married life, या फिर वो एक दूसरे के लिए अपनी marital obligations नहीं निभा सकते हैं, they're not able to adjust, they're not able to bend, or for any other reason, any extraneous reason for which they realize that it is not possible for them to cohabit and live together peacefully as a happy married couple, then in such case, if both of them agree, that is, there's a mutual consent for divorce, such a couple can opt for divorce via mutual consent. So we have this provision in law where husband and wife, if both of them agrees to get out of their marriage, they can do it smoothly by way of divorce by mutual consent. So for divorce by mutual consent, the husband and wife must share a similar thought of not being able to lead a happy married life or a peaceful married life, because of which they opt to get a divorce in a more peaceful and dignified manner. You may think, why does law has to interfere in a private matter such as a marriage? Mostly अगर शादी करने के लिए कोर्ट जाने की ज़रूरत नहीं पड़ती है, तो शादी ख़त्म करने के लिए कोर्ट जाने की ज़रूरत क्यों पड़ती है? See, the answer to that is, एक बार शादी हो जाती है तो it just not remains a private affair, but it also enters into the societal domain. And the moment it enters there, the law of the land begins to apply on it, and every marriage is bound by it. So basically, marriage is between two people, but once it takes place, you cannot break it off in contravention to the law of the land. Please know this, in no case whatsoever you can skip the legal part of it. अगर husband और wife के बीच में mutual understanding से काफ़ी decided है कि किस तरीके से divorce करना है, क्या आपकी arrangements रहेंगे, क्या आपका property division रहेगा, etc etc, क्या maintenance रहेगी, लेकिन फिर भी ये आप बिना कोर्ट में जाके एक proper decree लिए divorce के ये establish नहीं कर सकते हैं. That is, you cannot skip the legal part of it. You cannot skip the part where you have to approach the court and get a decree of divorce in your favor. Yes, when you decide to take divorce through mutual consent, this whole process of obtaining divorce gets relatively easier, faster, and also smooth. But again, that does not mean you'll not have to go to court. That is why I say, in our country, it is easier to get married, but it is very difficult to get out of it. Divorce is not an easy task to begin with. In India, a marriage between two Hindus is governed by Hindu Marriage Act of 1955. It not only accords different rights to married people, but also governs all the procedures and processes of obtaining a divorce as well. Now that we've got a general understanding of what we're going to talk about today, let's dive straight into the legal framework around divorce by mutual consent. So, what is the actual legal definition of divorce by mutual consent? हिंदू मैरिज एक्ट के सेक्शन 13B के अंडर you can get a divorce by mutual consent, but for that you will have to satisfy certain conditions laid out under that section. I'm going to step by step break down what are the things you require to get a divorce like that and also the legal process around it. हालांकि ये ऑलरेडी अभी तक स्टैब्लिश हो चुका है, but at the cost of repetition, I'm again going to mention it that the basic essential thing we require under getting a divorce by mutual consent is that both the husband and wife must agree to get a divorce. That is the foundation on which the subsequent divorce proceedings will take place. Now, as per section 13B of Hindu Marriage Act, you need three things to get a divorce by mutual consent. Let's discuss that. Okay, so first is that both the husband and wife have mutually agreed to break off their marriage. यानी हस्बैंड और वाइफ ने ऑलरेडी साथ में डिसाइड कर लिया है कि उन्हें ये मैरिज अब कंटिन्यू नहीं करनी है एंड बोथ ऑफ देम आर सीकिंग डिवोर्स. Second thing, both the husband and wife have to file a joint petition in the court for dissolution of their marriage. यानी ऐसा नहीं है कि सिर्फ एक पार्टी की ड्यूटी होगी एक ऐसी पेटिशन प्रेजेंट करने की, बट क्योंकि ये म्यूचुअल कंसेंट डिवोर्स है यानी दोनों पार्टीज का अंडरस्टैंडिंग है डिवोर्स को लेकर, तो पेटिशन भी दोनों पार्टी साथ में ही डालते हैं. एंड थर्ड थिंग, this is very important, so listen carefully. Whenever you file a joint petition for seeking divorce by mutual consent, it is very important to mention that the husband and wife are not living together, that is living separately for at least 1 year or more than that. इसका मतलब हमें ये बताना होता है कि पिछले 1 साल से हस्बैंड और वाइफ साथ में नहीं रह पा रहे हैं. I'll take a moment to explain what does living separately here mean. Living separately का मतलब ये नहीं है that you have to establish in the court that husband and wife have not been living together under the same roof. No, that is not the thing. Living separately means that husband and wife are not carrying out their marital obligations towards each other for at least a year or more than that. यानी कि husband and wife can live under same roof in the same room but still not carry out their marital obligations. In that petition, it should also be mentioned कि ना ही सिर्फ पिछले 1 साल से साथ में रह रहे हैं बल्कि they cannot even live together anymore. So this is to establish that the marriage has broken down in such a way कि अब डिवोर्स लेने के अलावा कोई और ऑप्शन बचता ही नहीं है. So that is necessary. So if your case satisfy these 3 essentials, then you can certainly opt for divorce by mutual consent. Another very important thing you should know is that how much time this process takes. See, I'm here to give you a very practical and truthful account of how these legal procedures take place. I'll tell you what exactly happens. To obtain a final decree of divorce, 2 motions have to take place. First motion is when you present your joint petition before the court for the very first time. In that petition, you show your inclination, your interest to take divorce from each other and break off the marriage permanently. Now, once you present that petition before the court takes it on record, but it does not immediately signs it off and says that and gives you the divorce decree for that matter. No, that is not how it takes place. So once the court receives the joint petition, it directs the couple to observe a 6 months long cooling period. Now, what is that cooling period? Very interesting. As per Indian laws, the intention is to always preserve the institution of marriage, not destroy it immediately. So that is why the court gives a certain period of time for the couple to rethink their decision, to opt for mediation or other things, just cool down and think about their decision once again. Because sometimes what happens is that couples directly run to end their marriage without even considering or delving into the possibility of mending it first. So the court gives them a cooling period of a minimum of 6 months to reconsider their decision, think about it, and then finally objectively decide that whether they want to go ahead with the divorce or not. I understand. At first blush, you might also think, what is the need of a cooling period? Because already this is a mutual consent divorce. That is, the husband and wife already know that they don't want to live together and continue their marriage, and they just want to get it out of it as soon as possible. But you'll be surprised to know that in most of the cases, usually in the cases where the newlyweds run to get a divorce immediately, what happens is that during this cooling period, this court mandated cooling period, couples actually come around and change their decision. There are a lot of couples who do not come back to file for second motion because meanwhile in this cooling period they decide to invest in their marriage, they try to mend it and eventually succeed in doing that. And the court is more than happy to not have a second motion for divorce because, again, as I've said earlier, the Indian law is designed to preserve marriage, not destroy it. That is why there is a mandatory 6 months cooling period for the couples to rethink their decision, to go through it once again, and then finally decide when they're like 100% sure that they want to go through it. That is when the court also agrees to pass a decree for divorce. Also, the court is quite flexible around the 6 months cooling period. अगर आपको लगता है कि आपको कुछ और टाइम चाहिए सोचने का, then the 6 month period is also extendable up to 18 months. You can take 18 months to finally consider and decide whether you want to move for the second motion or not. One thing you should also know is that the court is generally not inclined to waive off the 6 months period. But in extraordinary situation and your case falls in that, then you may request the court, and the court in its own discretion can either waive it off or reduce it. Coming back, after the expiry of this court mandated 6 months cooling off period, if the couple has finally decided to get a divorce and break off their marriage, they can file a second motion in the court. The court then will satisfy itself over the consent, that is, if the consent is true and it has not been obtained through false or deception and anything like that. And if the court is satisfied, it will grant a divorce by mutual consent. Okay, wait, the video is not over yet. Here's a list of crucial things you should know if you are thinking of obtaining a divorce by mutual consent. First thing is that the consent in a mutual consent divorce has to be a free consent. Court shall satisfy itself in every case that the consent given by both the parties is free and absolutely is not given due to some fraud, some deception, or undue influence for that matter. Also, very important thing. So, consent in a mutual consent divorce can be withdrawn at any point of time. So, let's say you began with a situation where the husband as well as the wife were planning to take a divorce from each other peacefully, but later on, either of the party decides to not go ahead with it. It can withdraw its consent unilaterally. Any party can withdraw their consent anytime before granting of the divorce, of course. And once the consent has been withdrawn, it no longer remains a case of divorce by mutual consent. So, yes, to obtain a divorce by mutual consent, the consent has to remain constant and unqualified from the beginning till the end. Mutual consent should continue till the divorce decree has been granted. Now see, once the decree of mutual consent divorce has been passed, there is no appeal from it. यानी कि आप उसे आगे जाके सुपीरियर कोर्ट में चैलेंज नहीं कर सकते हैं. There's only one ground on which you can challenge such divorce decree, and that is your consent was obtained from deception. इसका मतलब, if the party that wants to challenge the divorce decree is able to prove that their consent was obtained by deceiving them, then only such a decree can be appealed against. Otherwise, there lies no appeal. Okay, so now we are moving towards the last part, but a very interesting part of the video, where we will debunk the most common misconception around it. Most people think that divorce by mutual consent is a quick process. Now, that is something which is not entirely true and entirely false. If measured in relative time, yes, it is a quicker method than other forms of divorces, especially the divorces where both the parties contest. But in general, it is not true that it takes a very short time to obtain a decree of divorce. It does take a substantial amount of time. एक और चीज़ जहाँ पे लोगों को सबसे ज़्यादा डाउट होता है कि ये जो मैंडेटरी प्रिस्क्राइब पीरियड है, जैसे कि 1 साल तक हस्बैंड वाइफ शुड रिमेन सेपरेटली, या फिर 6 महीने का कूलिंग ऑफ पीरियड इज़ एसेंशियल, तो क्या ये एब्सोल्यूट होते हैं और देयर इज़ सम स्कोप to waive them off completely. So, the settled legal position on this is that it depends on the facts and circumstances of your case. Yes, the court has power and discretion to either waive off or reduce such time, but always remember that will depend on the facts and circumstances of every case. It is not a thumb rule. One more misconception is that once both the spouses have agreed to go for a mutual consent divorce, they cannot withdraw their consent. And I've told you earlier, please note that down, that if you're going for a mutual consent divorce, the consent has to remain same from beginning till the end. यानी अगर कोई भी spouse, कोई भी party unilaterally consent withdraw कर लेती है, then it no longer remains a divorce by mutual consent. हालांकि the law around it is slightly changing, it is evolving, because recently the Kerala High Court did rule that if one spouse is withholding their consent for no reason at all, it amounts to cruelty. Because when both the spouses know that the marriage has completely broken down and there is no scope of reconciliation whatsoever, then there is no point dragging such a marriage. It should end, and withholding your consent or withdrawing your consent just because you want to spite the other spouse is not appreciated by the courts. But again, it depends on case to case. What we have discussed today is general principle of law around mutual consent divorces. Whether these apply to you or not, or in your case or not, is something which can only be decided after getting to know the facts and circumstances of your case. So yes, a consultation with your lawyer is a must before you take any step towards any direction. Alright, so this wraps up our discussion on mutual consent divorces. I hope this video helped in simplifying the legal processes for you and give you a clearer understanding of the law. If you found this content valuable, please give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Millennial Advocate, for getting such simplified legal guides in future. Feel free to leave the questions or comments below. I'll be happy to address them. If you're seeking legal advice specific to your situation, you can also reach out to me for one-to-one consultation. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.